Although there's a Harry Litman who came on. He has a video with a Midas Touch Network. I knew that Midas Touch Network. Everyone has influences by prosecutors and judges and their family members, victims, advocates, all sides of criminal and civil cases, lawyers, news at the same time, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists, even when they're not there. Oh, relative to uses also of words like extremism and radical, criminally foreign influence, and tactically delusions wrought, and self-value rules. In other words, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, WFSB, they have intelligence at and next to their place and next to their location. Since before I was born, there are proofs. But since I was in fourth grade, with people increasingly involved from other classrooms that were putting fake things in databases and acting tied to that to make people that never even know each other pretended, as timed collusion slash S with predicate acts with facts, for a method also relative to where and to how everyone left black peoples and white survivors out. These are also some black KKK Confederate flag themed criminal enterprises, private, overt, and interbranch forging and switching names roles, increasingly stacking upon those predicate acts every year. A breaching method showed them that they had to hide collusion slash S with the use slash S with that roles, with things that had nothing to do with it, except for how it uses them showing they need to hide that other location slash S. A whole bunch of people within the intelligence community recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and foreign people with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart that were first forced. They have something to do with religious spots of totally different religions and people on the sides of them, with people with the name Kerr and Perone, for example. And they said it has some that they confessed, recorded, demonstrated. They have federal evidences, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slander, and predicate acts roles. And federal evidences rackets with all sides of criminal and civil cases. Investigators being haven't been used remotely too. They were showing that too, including their campuses. This is at and next to each campus. There is a singular predicate acts method against every with facts delivery system method singular that was a singular order that we were supposed to appreciate and observe, having been sustained upon Native Americans before America's founders were born. And had we done that honestly, it would have revealed that it is more probable and practical to convict, to theorize, let alone to convict. And there are demonstrations that people had been here before. Christopher Columbus, who there are proofs that he came here to do damage control. Like, for example, with the other countries already having been the possession, the same way our founders were. They didn't have free speech and they declassified this. But the breaching method in the subject of as a subject in the communications of our founders, has been replaced, and there are self-valid rules with that. With this breaching method employed, the names of the people of the sciences to speak for things like seriousness, to speak about critical issues, and to want and to need to have a nature debate. When they have a nature debate, they have quality aspects of nature that can't defend themselves and us at the same time. Has something to do with the corners from there, too. With a whole bunch of judges and prosecutors with the same house with wire crimes with them, and stacking police reports falsified since I was a kid. Not just against me, against everyone. They had collusion slash that's all natures of crime scenes. And these are good people too. Where and how we could observe good people have stayed evil. That's one of the things that is increasingly relative where we have black pupils, whites of eyes, and that inseparable from proper serious treatments of serious subjects. But it is forced to be separable. And how that is gotten away with it is recorded. But part of that, observing that, is to being needs to tell on people offensively pretending passions and emotions that they don't realize. You know how many collusions the people with the prisons in Connecticut have? Out of the state corrections offices, all kinds of natures of organized crimes. And what are they going to say when there are legitimate reasons they have roles with organized crimes, unmarked police forms, and their family members, people involved with conversations with them? This is a breaching method that measured and maintained everyone from abroad. Had slavery with black too, sickly distinctly everyone against everyone, slavery, torture, extortion method. We examined the laws as they actually were. So we have the phenomenon of things just because they're published, used remotely criminally foreign influence, and we have them blocking what's proper to publish relative to their roles, preventing people from speaking about predicate acts, fake ties, and fake natures of ties to ourselves. And timed use / estimate recorded. There is mass acting. Not one of them. That's why they can't. You can go have acting professors to these people. Interbranch and the family members when they try to investigate things. How could they investigate things? They're already collusion / S. They attach me to fake conversations with WFSB, with themselves and with others, as all kinds of natures of organized crimes at once, and a whole bunch of names they brought up at once. The same ones that have been putting fake ties to me since I was a kid, including doctors. And I caught them forcing a principal child abuser. Thank God caught anyway. But I caught them with more worse than that before then and that. And a whole bunch of murders and untimely deaths rolls intercities, non-Trinity's campus. Even if it was made up, they're planting other evidences there. A whole bunch of people tied to a Joshua Stryker, involved with confessions tied to the houses with wire crimes, with the Wethersfield police, the falsified police reports with them, fake conversations with me, and fake pretending me at the police station as a kid. And then as an adult, I was there I said one word of conversation to my friend from Saudi Arabia, and there was one of the Mendez police brothers there, reportedly, other brothers, and he was I never had a word of conversation with him. He put me in a fake sentence with him. The Morrows have a cousin named Scalora, and they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they're involved with neighbors of a Keene family and people that were there. In other words, a boyfriend of someone he might have been intimately tied to, and they were trying to make it look like he was jealous or something because he had another guy who was also intimately tied to her, and they were trying to pretend they were jealous of that in one context, but they were plotting with it in another, like a Kerr family. Also with the officer Jerry Miller, with a officer with the fire department. A whole bunch of people with Hartford Hospital have roles with an Inspector Mike, who is refusing to identify himself, with judges and prosecutors and people on the state judicial branch officers and houses and businesses next to it who are involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidence, crimes. And with WT&H attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others and with the Saudi attackers with people before and after the World Trade Center attack, involved with them after the World Trade Center attack with those World Trade Center predicate acts. So, and I can't get them on paper, one name and sequence, a whole bunch of different countries involved with the same people. In other words, people from my grammar school increasingly involved with the intelligence community in Wethersfield and other campuses I went. Increasingly, there's a Ray Reynolds and a Joe DeMauro who were brought up by people who were Central Connecticut State University, foreign and domestic military, including a Kuwaiti general and his family members, roles with deans and their family members and their kids, and principals and their kids, influenced the collusion / S with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and criminally foreign influence uses of predicate acts with facts with databases and with uses of the nature of criminal insidiousness nature itself and quality aspects of nature inside the nature of debate/debates. Hotmail is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There are proofs that the agencies have sickly distinctly. I recorded the agencies sickly distinctly roles with the predicate acts with facts methods with black and white and their needs to lie and hide and how they did it and do it and fake transcripts roles to presidents. At Hartford Hospital has roles of foreign and domestic military with investigations of the World Trade Center attack with and has names who had collusions with it, who have been using the right to lie and the right with unmarked police forms. Also with all kinds of differences rackets. Where, in other words, that's why we have all these fakes with black and white using their differences to jump in with criminally foreign influence, fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects of nature, and change and fake what people say. Like regarding the seriousness of black people's whites of eyes left out from the conversation, replaced with that garbage and those delusions. We still have states' delusions clearer than day, clear, but we have them juxtaposed with criminally foreign influence, fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects of nature, whole wire crime acts and mail crime acts methods. All sides of criminal and civil cases have been shown. They'll already be used remotely. They have to show how they use the location as collusion /S with all natures of crime scenes. Also with all kinds of other names of all these different countries share here, their family members. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprise one worse than just terrorists, which has terrorism manifest. Why, in other words, when the Palestinian guy is yelling at the Israelis, he's using the word extremism. There's collusions right through Palestine and Israel with psychiatry. Tactically delusions wrought, and ones with badges, with more scams from Hartford Hospital, with the Institute of Living, not even real medicine, not even real health care. All exceptions show that they're criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, hurting people, and all kinds of legal scams. UConn and legal across the world. These are all great campuses. Even the worst campus in Hartford, Connecticut, for example, New Haven. In other words, FBI. When did they get black people's right? They can't. Oh, but that's our job. But in other words, we don't have a bunch of people that jump in people. People. We don't have time for nature debate to separate their collusions because the CIA has failure too. In other words, we're going to examine predicate acts of facts method. I'm not even a lawyer. Judge Napolitano, there are proofs that the agencies, the intelligence, foreign and domestic, they have been changing and faking digital to him, to hold digital crime methods, wire and mail crime methods relative to the stacking falsified police reports and arrays of falsified. So anyone could go back. If they try to look, they're going to be sensed. And through other apparent motivations presenting too. Everyone's senses for the breaching method. That's another reason why and how you guys have left out what is inseparable from American history, which is why and how there's the body of space/existence that shows us to an extent /S that where and how we have black pupils, whites of eyes, the same color eyes, different color eyes itself. The body of space/existence itself is showing us about similarity and difference. It is showing us that the other species bodies have eyes different, but the same too. They're distinct, non-distinct, and they're simultaneous. But also per that further hyper simultaneous, which is neither us nor them. And showing us that's how we have a distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. See, we have and exceptions in exception nature. So there were a whole bunch of prosecutors tied to one named Soulsby and Brian Silver, who have roles with people on all sides from Wethersfield. A whole bunch of people from Wethersfield, intercities, Connecticut, and interstates, and internationally through time since before anyone was born. On all sides of Central Connecticut State University, there are proofs that the same scam was involved. It's a perfected method slash S, and it's exploiting it. It revolves with how they're so overtly slash insidiously, so getting away with it too. Replacing what nature is being and has been communicating to us. And exceptions in exception nature as nature shows it, us to appreciate it. The ways we know, but then further hyper additionally. And part of the ways you miss what we know and what people think is like when people speak online. They already recorded, the breaching method already showed, but the prosecutors, they say by the book. This here Litman used the phrase by the book. They left out exceptions in exception nature. In the breaching methods rolls with the books, the laws in the books. They have replaced the scientific value of the founding plan that James Madison and the founders behind him, and as him in that plan, brought to George Washington, who then agreed to use that plan and to help them. We have that story changed. We have dishonesty about the extortion of George Washington forced. They're pretending there's the value of titles that there is not. Same ones are showing that they had to hide that because it's recorded. So then they pretend to be against people of power. January 6th was more so to keep the fake sides too when they fight with each other. They're defending quality. They're defending with collusions. The prisons have roles like crime scenes too, and next to body dumping spots. All kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, torture methods, extortion, slavery methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders, with the people at corrections offices in the prisons, involved with the same houses like Collusion and DeMar. A whole bunch of people tied to them. Heather Hansen will confess to you this. John DeMar, too, has roles with the World Trade Center attack through other natures of organized crime, and his family members' confessions and demonstrations, with his roles putting fake things in databases with security with the campuses, too. Involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones with grammar school kids, and with a whole bunch of different countries. Whole bunch of different countries and people with the international business at Central Connecticut State University in Brighton, Connecticut, have roles with John DeMar, with the FBI director Robert Luskin, and his roles planting evidences with people with the World Trade Center attack next to Town Line Drive locations. Also with judges' family members, like people like with the name Mike Delfera and a Chris Delfera. I never had a class with them. I don't know them. They sought me out to take their picture near me, apparently, like with their roles with town lines, like in Rocky Hill and Wethersfield Town Line, and Wethersfield, and all along Wethersfield and Hartford Town Lines. They're also brought up in confessions, where the intelligence people repeats people's names to people, and they're involved with the identity theft, because then they have people questioned about things and they make things up. They also fake conversations with people, with the police through their whole lives, and build on that. Police fake conversations with me that weren't at all when I was a kid. One's tied to one's named Mendez too. I don't know. They're educators involved with identity theft, frauds, slanders, wire crime acts and methods, including with police faking phone transcripts, including with them doing the opposite too, like making a phone and then pretend that people were in the physical locations together. I don't even know where Eric Mendez lives. I never saw him on my street in my life, Ian nor his brother, who switches his name. They have roles of Wethersfield police with all kinds of federal evidences, crimes, with proven child abusers, leaders of the kids years apart. They had youth/estimate roles, all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, with doctors who also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I didn't say anything to them, but it was people with the name Yagman involved and their neighbors. I don't even know their names. And people with the name Phil Collusion involved further with a principal upskirt nature, with digital crimes and medical crimes, with medical and sexual offenders of kids, and people with state police and forensics involved with places along Southstein Highway and the Berlin Turnpike with leasing agents too, and with ones and their family members with foreign and domestic military, including ones with um intercities like New Britain. And as one of the leasing agents is one of the ones who was in my grammar school, who's involved with Justin Kovinskis with some, and Mark Violet with some KKK, black theme, Latino theme, intercities. These are police forms at and next to Fox Connecticut News, at and next to WFSB, at and next to WTNH, in a number of ways with each of the next to those spots and added spots. And they're refusing to identify themselves into branch. And they're relative to uses of their family members at the same time with overt criminal enterprises. Forgiveness is because they lie about what they think when people use their own names or our own. All exceptions of exception nature that appear to or do show other. They come with demonstrations of the same. And this is on a mass scale. They have been consciously shown means and needs to forbid such demonstrations, not just from me. Like, for example, there are proofs that there's a Judge Napolitano with a Judging Freedom YouTube channel. There are proofs to one time this stuff was making my hand itch. One time, and felt like it was an itching powder type thing they used to have back in the day in the 70s. But anyway, there are more child abusers, leaders, and kids in roles with predicate acts, men and women. And these are ones that are roles with leveraged, putting little boys and girls with sustained predicate acts against them, and then putting them in prisons, and just putting them in fake things anyway. Even and with their kids' involvements with it, collusion/S. Increasingly, people interstates involved with medical corruption, and their sources from Wethersfield, Connecticut, will tell you they had the intelligence community influenced. The people that had communications with them planted federal evidences, crimes, and predicate acts, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me at the corners of streets, at campuses I went to, and then years later they had to hide some. Timothy O'Brien and Rick Ciampaglione and a Ray Claw and people with the name Peruta that are Russian and others with WTNH have been planting evidences at corners on Highcrest Street with sexual and medical offenders of kids who are as ones at the same time involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and foreign and domestic military being and having been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, wrought. And Rob Hill, I don't need me to have any more enemies than I do. But there's a Dave Hill. I don't know him either. I never saw him around school. He's one of the ones. There's a Chuck Casper that people from New Britain Superior Court and people from Hartford Hospital, name drop, brought into their roles with some people on my street involved with predicate acts from other areas. I don't know their names. They also have a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital involved with people with the name Smith and Collusion that the police and themselves confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed. They have roles with predicate acts with some judges, prosecutors, and their family members, and some foreign and domestic countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and their educators, people with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University and the departments there know, including the digital. They have all kinds of digital crime acts and methods. The FBI has roles with Hotmail, with people involved with World Trade Center predicate acts, federal evidences, crimes, with Dean, who had conversations with a Dean Alford, have a Joshua Stryker involved with them with the witness, their roles with the witness protection program, and shipping, people involved with shipping, and people they've been lying to me, to people on corners of streets, on Griswold Street, there's also a mayor there involved with a whole bunch of people tied to a Joe Aiello, increasingly involved with people who have been planting predicate acts with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, foreign countries, people tied to body dumping spots and various natures of organized crimes with grammar school kids that never even had anything to do with each other, that are spreading lies with kids from other grammar schools relative to where and how we can discern how the intelligence community and the interbranch and the difference of that was is used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought. And then years later, it has something to do with that. Like they timed where I was going to be. Increasingly, my Saudi friend has names next to each campus I went to, who were forced themselves and forced her to, and the Saudi attackers were forced by the same body that has complete remote possession over uses of the name America and over uses of the name Saudi Arabia and over uses of the name of the Bible and the Quran. They are both read with readings of them with passions and emotions, tactically ulterior from how they dictate is the most important thing right at the front to catch people attacking the religions and defending the religions with collusions. Also with the people with the exceptions where this is relative as subjects, like serious subjects. You know, everyone's speaking about religion. It's pretty serious if it's part of their logic in nature where everyone needs peace. You know, plus two, anyone was honest with science, nature itself shows us there could be in our criminal insidiousness natures of peace. So needs to discern the hyper peace, distinct from that. In other words. And the nature of debate regarding in the non-debate, you know, the absence of it in the subject, how the suburbs were designed tactically denatured before America's founders were born. And that was it was sustained progress on tactically denaturing everything, the way everything was and is. Now we're reliant upon, you know, not nature's system of answering how to cause positive value, nature progressions, acts, nature, how to cherish water. Clear. Air, clear. The suburbs were designed before America's founders were born. The spots associated with buying stock and the elements, like see, no, in other words, Judge Napolitano has a Larry. There's a Larry Martin who's involved with people with stock market and people with this Mark Violet and Joseph Kovinskis with foreign and domestic military, including KKK, Confederate flag theme, black theme, Latino theme, collusion /S with stacking predicate acts and databases with their educators, ones I didn't even have classes with that are tied to my neighbors, and ones I don't even know what schools they went to. And they're pretending as the ones involved with the police phones. The police phones families have roles with the 9/11, also with their extended family members and intimate ties. And intimate ties of retired Weathersfield police chiefs with the same house /S. And the one in and out where they came from, too, which is right next to the state judicial branch offices. I mean, the state corrections offices, per them. And they have roles also with others right next to it, who also, as strangers sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. Increasingly, people that were in my sixth grade class have collusions with Clinton people, and people from before them, with foreign and domestic military, and with Russians, and with people from Ukraine at the same time, with their doctors at Hartford Hospital, and their roles with houses and businesses next to them, as roles that are families that have been planting, acting tied to the people at and next to campuses with identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake ties, fake natures, and ties to ourselves, including with the news. WTNH has been planting at other corners evidences with the people that planted corners of the street with the principal child abuser while forcing it A Joshua Julian is one of the ones with Facebook itself and the FBI and Wethersfield Police and the Britain Superior Court's Facebook pages, and co-defendants of FBI Director Robert Luskin and their family members. Don LeConche is recorded involved with predicate acts with facts in databases behind my back I never saw on campus in my life. People tied to her at Trinity College with my neighbors, and with a Joshua Stryker, and a whole bunch of people that confessed him involved with my neighbors, with people with all sides of the Wethersfield Community Center and at the community center. And they have cousins involved with the World Trade Center attack and predicate acts roles as names at the World Trade Center, spots next to it, like with the name Scalora, and spot next to it, like the Ninth Circuit Court, involved with names on all sides of that case and their sources, and the court itself. Also with the officers that have been switching and forging names and planting fake things at New Britain Superior Court that have roles doing that with names at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, that are increasingly involved with predicate acts with names and methods of them, with names at other campuses. See, but they change and fake what everyone says on a mass scale. So in other words, and the differences of the guilt of the Republican themed or the Democratic themed prosecutors and judges, that's also used remotely. A whole bunch of judges and prosecutors are like tied to a Collusion family and the Smith family near me, involved with the Wethersfield Police, and them lying about what they think. They brought this up, not me. And when there was exception, when I forced people to call the police without telling them why, they used that exception already criminally for an impulse too, to hide that. That's recorded too. But no one's following mandated law. People are pretending that things have to be proven before they don't. They do. As their roles with the predicate acts methods too. And as their roles with collusion /S, with all natures of crime scenes, including body dumping spots and next to them. As the courts involved with people with violence on my street from other areas. Increasingly, a Leahy family is one of the medical families involved with judges and prosecutors, with child offenders, sexual and medical, and putting fake transcripts in databases at campuses, including medical campuses, and with courts. They have a Brian Silver involved with this Leahy family, with a Judge Smith. And then there was a Judge Killian, and there were other judges speaking fake things and delusions and records with them, and with other doctors. There's a Dr. Zeman, and there's a Dr. Aziz involved with forging names also. Like of a Dr. Shamsi Ali, and as ones I barely had any words with, and they who are after, who have collusions with people. There were no words at all for 3 days there with them, and they pretended whole fake transcripts with me, with the Leahy family, as ones increasingly involved with people with untimely deaths too, years apart. They have roles with murders. They are part, but the people that counter those things have roles with all the different kinds of drugs and things in unmarked police forms. They have included, these are increasingly people next to Mark Twain, Harry Beecher House, Stillhouse, and at that location, as ones increasingly all along Route 3, but next to Hartford Hospital as one of the things that ties all those people, the houses and businesses next to it. All the way to UPS, and people at UPS recorded involved with the World Trade Center attack. They're also recorded. They sought me out with people that got arrested through them, and people with the name Oliveri before the World Trade Center attack, before I ever went to work there and learn about that more. And every year since the World Trade Center attack, Connecticut has rules of more predicate acts of facts with that. You're going to pay attention to what they've been doing at and next to campuses where they pretended they had the ability to speak for honesty or truth, or science, let alone black people. They left the black people's whites of eyes out, and a whole bunch of other revelations that they also have replaced with delusions and with criminally foreign influence, spectrum nature, quality aspects of nature, black people. I'll see the whites of eyes who disbelieves. Get to my paper, one name and sequence. There were whole methods recorded where they switched names, forged names, and refused to identify themselves legitimately. FBI. There were also Secret Service involved with Hotmail, taking my Hotmail, and involved with this whole bunch of Joshua Julian has been lying about himself and about me to others behind my back as identity theft, fraud, slanders with the FBI and other agencies, attached me fake ties, fake nature ties to himself and others with people from my area involved with the wire crimes and stacking falsified police reports. They even pretended through the news that I went to the police station when I was a kid and had a police report. I did not. They put fake Chris Walters. It's recorded other ways too. I had no community. They had me in a car with him and my neighbor after they recorded, plausibly sabotaged my car to make sure that I'd be in the car with him and the Chris Walters, who wasn't even in my school. In other words, they were putting private school kids with Ray Reynolds has roles with foreign and domestic intelligence, and Ray Collusion. Their educators are involved, sticking predicate acts with facts and databases with them. And as people that have been planting evidence on all sides of my house from other areas together with the Wethersfield Police and other police departments with the same house/S and their intimate ties, who are also with the news, WFSB attached, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, the biggest news, attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others and about the World Trade Center attack. And they're refusing to communicate with me. And I can't communicate with them digitally because I didn't try to communicate with them digitally because already I recorded them involved with digital crime methods and, evidences, crimes, methods. They're just changing what's digitally recorded. And in other words, and there are judges and conversations with a lawyer of a former police chief, Cintron, with the name Bayer, who's also involved with, the campuses, with how they've been putting fake things in databases through time with the same names. In other words, more teachers that are personally and professionally involved with conversations with the Michael Emmett are further also with their neighbors involved with Hartford Hospital with medical crimes with kids and putting fake things in databases, and with judges and prosecutors from various courts and their family members that have collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and they're pretending whatever, legitimate, because they were criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, precedents, and reality at the same time. And they're incapable of dealing proper with how this has been. They have replaced in the subject of, they have replaced from the subject / from the subjects of our founders the scientific value of a human fact treating nature breaching method having been, the value of what those laws were against colonists, Native Americans, and everyone sickly distinctly, too, that way. To keep functionally, how sickly non-distinctly, even though it was against everyone commonly, even though nature shows, everyone wants nature's system, how to call it, everyone wants clean water. Anyone who would want to pollute the water of someone for war, whatever like that, it's because they have been used remotely and per the torture, extortion, slavery method. And once we get that done, then we, in other words, we have means that come out of nowhere. When it rains, there are no longer bugs on fresh water, bodies of fresh water. No longer in the suburban / urban cities. No longer in the cities like New York where they put a Central Park. The fish aren't there anyway. If they put fish there, they put it. It's not the way nature wants it. All kinds of different species. And when it rains, all of a sudden, the bugs are no longer going on the surface of the pond to feed the fish. But all of a sudden, worms walk up in the rain, and they go in the water. They just walk into bodies of water. It's not by now there are less bugs in the air, bugs to find for the birds that need food because there rain. But now there are worms coming up. See, nature communicates about hyper positive and negative. It's showing us its identity and relativity to it simultaneously, and then further concentrated here at Earth. But we have things pretended debatable. We have the nature as criminality. We have black people as white survivors. That's hyper evidential. See, people that already, with the breaching method already showed the prosecutors, they use words like, I don't see evidence. In other words, this breaching method showed them to pretend they don't see the hyper evidential. Like collusion, /s. Each campus I went, and it's not personal. I love the people at campus I can prove. That's in other words. That's the only reason. In other words, I ignore things when they come up, and other people do too. On a mass scale, all nature's investigators are manifest at the same time with overt criminal enterprise and private ones need to be part of both sides of criminal and civil, like little illusions to pretend they're going to qualify something legitimately. Increasingly, people from the intelligence community from Central Connecticut State University is making confessions about there being people with the name, people from Glastonbury intelligence, and tied to the names Pandolf and Scalora have roles with the World Trade Center attack, or have roles with names that were involved with the World Trade Center attack predicate acts. They don't understand their complete roles. It is recorded since they were kids, and the placements of their classes were affected by the predicate acts stacked into databases before that. And there are timed uses of it. A Mike Domain said that there's an communicator. He didn't use that name, but he said that communicator there's an Adam Domain, and they have a family members involved with as neighbors, like not far from Mazzucato house. Reportedly, Mazzucato, I don't know if they still live there. Where I was only there for a real quick second. One time, they made a fake exception because they're involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. There are proofs that they took my picture to make a fake exception. They have roles with a whole bunch of different countries and the Saudi attackers with police chief Cintron and 1 years ago, and their intimate ties involved with the same house /S near me, involved with the police chief confessions. I mean, with the confessions of Wethersfield police regarding their police chiefs and regarding the switching names that he influenced and regarding their roles with digital crime acts and methods. Increasingly, there are military, foreign and domestic, associated with locations like of apartments near Central Connecticut State University that has something to do with their center. They're hiding behind that they're leaking that as one of the things where the map is one of the things that connects all these people and their time to use /S of it, including online. A Joshua Julian and Anthony Yagman are recorded with medical and sexual offenders of little kids, leaders of them, roles with security with the campuses and intelligence cities. They've been sticking fake things in databases with intelligence all along Route 175, including on YouTube. A Christopher Walters sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He has roles with intelligence and intelligence that also faked conversations with me. Confess them and ones made fake exceptions, and their doctors all along Route 175. They have rules with intercities, Connecticut, not just through Wethersfield, Newington, and New Britain. But these are names also on all sides of New Britain, Central Connecticut State University, where they had to hide lab regressions time, which is relative because Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, has roles with the interbranch and intelligence leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context. And since they had roles with the World Trade Center attack and WFSB's World Trade Center predicate acts after to hide it is also what's confessing this. And they won't communicate with me. They want me to communicate digitally because they already attached me to fake letters and faked and changed digital. There's a Darth Vader, a guy who says he's Darth Vader at Trinity College, involved with a whole bunch of people from Harvard Hospital, involved with predicate acts there, tied to their roles with Mark Violet and his mother at UConn, and people at UConn involved with the name Zano. Many with the name Zano. He says there are people with the name Puzo also involved with their intelligence family, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with their educators. Put me fake ties, fake natures of ties to a Paul Zano. They tried to make a fake exception at a highlight building. I never had a conversation with their proofs that they took a picture to make it fake it look like I do him. Paul Zano was increasingly planting evidences with child offenders and people on my street tied to ones years apart, where there were time use / estimate roles. Joshua Julian is also involved with a whole bunch of medical and sexual offenders of kids, digital too, and planting evidence on all sides of my house, including on Facebook. Weathersfield, and with there's a Joshua Schumack, also with the Weathers and his mother, with the Weathersfield Police Facebook page, involved also with houses and businesses next to them, involved with predicate acts with them and their campuses. I don't even know what campuses Joshua Schumack went to. He's involved with some KKK Confederate flag themed and Jewish themed and other religious themed that have been planting evidences. A Jewish teacher I had for her, she repeated about sexual things about a Jewish neighbor I had. I never even had the pleasure to be in next to. I don't even know what she looks like. I wouldn't even recognize her. But increasingly, also there were people involved with the military, in the fifth grade class of a Ray Collusion. And he came to my school, my grammar school, when he was in fourth grade. It has something to do with people with the name O'Brien, with different police departments, and with them, and all kinds of corruption with them, with the judicial branch officers and the corrections officers, with them, with wire crime acts and methods. And like they go around, they walk through. There was a proof, like something that people with the conversations with the Timothy O'Brien, Andrew O'Brien, and people with the name O'Brien, people from Sandy Hook too, involved with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, including with ones that are medical and tactically delusions wrought with the campuses at Sandy Hook, and people involved with Sandy Hook promises and Alex Jones refusing to identify themselves with the police and the FBI, with the police forms switching and forging names. They're recorded confessing, demonstrated, confirmed they have more people with Rocky Hill's campus, Rocky Hill High School, involved with various natures of organized crimes. I didn't bring it up because it's intercities, and I need to get them on paper. There's a Luigi Guerrero. I never had a conversation with him. He tried. He's one of the ones involved with a John Maiano, with a Paul Zano, with sequence shapes, and they try to make a fake exception look other, with a Bryant University, and Johnson and Wales has rules interstates with the people. There are also proofs people from Boston College with the name Mazzucato, involved with the intelligence communities, foreign and domestic, involved also with medical and sexual offenders of kids, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and their roles with identity theft, frauds, and slanders, with people associated with the corner where the Mazzucato Bakery is now in Rocky Hill, near Elm Street, from years before when they had that bakery there, as the ones involved next to Harvard Hospital and next to that, like Mazzucato Bakery in Harvard. In other words, and this is also where this breaching method starts fights between people, or just keeps them ignoring it and pretending fake motivation and the illusions that they're building off illusions, predicate acts, and databases each year. This is worse than extortion too. In other words, you guys have prevented me from using hyper evidential properly. You guys are sabotaging people. This is right where they have to pretend other, and they pretend that they take the kids. Oh, we're going to teach you to get organized. You want to get organized? Get them on paper, one name and sequence. I can't even go forward in business till I get them on paper. Get me off the fake conversations with people at and tied to Harvard Hospital, that campus, and next to it, Tomorrow's Market, Iola's Kitchen, and this Mayano house. Involved with the ones on my street and a whole bunch of people from other areas. Involved with untimely deaths 2 years apart, and confessions, planting evidence on my street, fake ties, being dangerous ties to me by timing where I'm going to be. That's one of the things that connects these people. That's why the interbranch forging and switching names connects them. Their time collusions with that, and their fake motivations for it. That's why they can't get in paper now. Increasingly, people have 3 spots at the end of the Brown Turnpike. Lied about me to have roles with identity, that fraud slander against me, and they will tell you this. Those same ones in backgrounds pretending other, the same good ones at the Capitol and next to it, at Harvard Hospital, involved next to Trinity College with Afghan leaders and kids, Confederate flag theme, KKK theme, black theme. Los Solitos theme, collusion /S, and with intelligence agencies spreading lies, like Johnny Duke, the dinosaur of boxing, live right there on Zion Street next to Trinity College. Whole bunch of people involved with my neighbors, with wire crimes and Wethersfield police in the news, stealing my identity and the names at those tied, having conversations with the people at the gym, planting evidence to have them repeat things behind my back that are fake, with my neighbors in Wethersfield, as the ones with the police phones, families, and the extended family members and names in the World Trade Center attack in Manhattan. I was in the Ninth Circuit Court as an observer next to the World Trade Center attack, right before the attack. And WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves after the attack too, as their recorded roles with that, as collusions before the attack too, with all sides, including Saudis. They forced the collusions with that, but also Saudis forced collusions with that. And the difference of that was it's also used remotely to hide behind too. Their conscious uses of it recorded. We have to appreciate the hyper evidential. No, in other words, all kinds of hyper evidential things that are recorded relative to where and how there are sequence shifts, and the courts had collusions at crime scenes, and with prisons, and with guilt narratives, because there were other foreign names involved. And then the hyper foreign, the breaching method for example, so to speak, calling it the hyper foreign. The breaching method is a scientific value that is not only left out and replaced at America with the suits and ties count as an exception too, with the suburbs were designed before America's founders were born. There were laws that if anyone was found out, you heard someone speaking about, even to have heard someone speaking about slavery. I mean, about building infrastructure outside of internationally monitored conversations while slavery was entrenched already, northern colonies and southern colonies. And that is worse than not clear, because there are collusions with what had it entrenched. When you have self-value collusions with it, when you're defending your positions on the Civil War, you're left out and have roles replacing what James Madison and our founders and his plan communicated about what the Civil War is about. In other words, they declassified things about what they said and about the breaching method that was measuring what everyone said. But we have their words interpreted, leaving that out, and self-valued roles with that. Otherwise, that body is sensed. Oh, but this is a expert. This is a good. In other words, that's why. In other words, obviously, Judge Napolitano with Judging Freedom YouTube channel, he knows a lot of things like that. If we had to, law, everything got burned. We had to write the laws. We have to use like someone like him to, to to preserve those things that were etched out by nature itself, but then criminally re-engineered. So he's a shock in all roles with that too, though. Anyone, we have to be able to show how we can show them too. How could you show me more about the law? I have black people's rights of eyes. In other words, there is a nature of collusion with the guilt of the branches of government individually grouped and together, and or the difference of that or the intelligence tied to them, which never had a possession of it. It was always criminally born, tactically delusions wrought, which is exactly what we are observing. For example, where we could observe where how having black pupils and whites of eyes is inseparable from subjects with history, not just American history, and how it was entrenched, even though right through our founders' lifetimes, they didn't have free speech regarding it because it was the torture, extortion, slavery method and roles. Otherwise, to an extent, otherwise that body was sentenced right through their own. This is clearer than day. Many pray. The reason they get away with debating things is because increasingly foreign and domestic, only three branches of government, and like their worth here and other countries, it was already used with what can't, and they're showed that they can't afford to have discern what nature shows us for sure words. Black people's whites, white. We're the same colorized, different colorized at the same time. Other species bodies have eyes just like us, distinctly but non-distinctly too, simultaneously for that further hyper-simultaneous. So nature showing us to communicate and showing us how to answer questions. Tactical, and we are, people that are supposed to be experts on the names as the names of the people of the sciences. They're leaving out and faking exceptions and valuing them having been paid, but they don't even realize the extent of it. So when they have, it's like this Harry Litman speaking about people who go by the book, prosecutors. They left out and self-valued being and having been left out exceptions, exception nature, as roles faking it, as roles with predicate acts with facts methods, as roles self-valuing roles with under the guise of being about corrections, collusions with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, and predicate acts with facts methods manifest with the people associated with the corrections offices of Connecticut and next to it, and their educators of their campuses, recorded involved with predicate acts of fact stacking. It's not, in other words, vaccines. This breaching method was using databases identity of relativity / relativities to ourselves since before computers. This is a criminal re-engineering of the republic for which we stand. This is a criminal sabotage of the Constitution unabridged relative to how it never got abridged. It never got unabridged. There are people with the intelligence associated with a Chris White involved with people with the name Sosha. I don't know them. And they were influenced to walk by me, and I was just polite to them. I was only polite to them. And there's a Jennifer Sosha, I believe her name is Jennifer Sosha. There's a whole bunch of people. There were a whole bunch of boyfriends of Spada sisters and their brother. And I'm sorry to have to use your name. My neighbor is involved with the retired police chief. And one of you guys brought up the Reno Mazzucato and someone dying with a cannoli. And there's a girl that's reportedly might have been murdered near you. A Julie Mancuso. I never had the pleasure of being around her, even have a word of conversation, but I don't know her. And there's a Chet Casper. A whole bunch of people said a Chet Casper, and there's a guy named Pete. I don't know his name. When he was a kid, they have something to do with the land on all sides of Town Line Drive and Hangdog Lane. Increasingly with people next to the state capitol, involved with foreign and domestic military and medical that are putting fake things in databases at campuses. People that don't know each other, they're pretending other. All along Route 175 and Route 3 and conjunctions to it are people that were putting fake ties and fake motivations for when there's an Arita Swanky who has people involved with a Pat Vincent and his teachers who were sticking predicate acts with facts and databases roles with some judges and prosecutors who forced them to hide things that were actually recorded they should have never hit, including crimes with guns with kids as collusions. And like, in other words, ones that are increasingly involved with body dumping spots, even if they're made up, they might be doing mass training, and they go here and solve this, figure out. In other words, because there's all kinds of organized crime and criminally foreign influence uses of the science's names, so that could be used to show that they're training. How are they going to speak about training? Not properly. How you have the nature of debate contains quality aspects of nature that, if entertained, that, in other words, you're reliant upon criminally foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects in the nature of debate, like regarding the significance of having black people's rights of eyes. Anyone who wants to debate that these are inseparable, hyper evidential conduit. In other words, they're going to have inherent to active to and progressive to their logic, their nature of the logic, demonstration /S of the same thing /S. Also, Quinnipiac University is recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirmed. There's a Fred Grisey involved with a Rick Cianfaglione and a Kevin Harris with the people at my kindergarten class, and next to it with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people at and next to Hartford Hospital, increasingly with names at and next to campuses, intercities, planting evidences. A DeMorrow's Market, and I don't know if it's still there. There's one in Rocky Hill with a Paul DeMorrow, who's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with his brothers, with wire crimes, with police, and with criminal enterprises, private ones, and child defenders, leaders of kids, years apart, where they had roles forcing that. They said a Mr. Pruzzi is involved with it. Also with people with stacking predicate acts before I was in his 5th grade class into databases. But I don't even know who they are. And I know that people that increasingly, Debbie Gold has been faking things in databases, and people tied to her have been pretending passions and emotions and setting up fake sides of issues, like timing where I was going to be too. Rules with that has something to do with Jennifer Kennepicky was also influenced by the intelligence community to plant evidences and identity theft, fraud, slanders against me with medical people at the corner of Hangdog Lane and Highcrest Street, per herself, and her mother with the intelligence community apparently too. In other words, and John Mayano were confirmed. He influenced him and Rick Cianfaglione. I barely ever saw him around Rick Cianfaglione. Apparently, him and Ray Collusion that lives near me. I don't know if they hung around with a Jamie Smith and a David Smith. I don't even know what campuses they went to. They're right diagonally behind me. They're involved with the wire with like, There are proofs undercover police forms through the years, like with the motorcycle themed or whatever, and whether they have some Afghan leaders and kids with Wethersfield town offices and state police families with whiting forensics are increasingly involved with them, like with a Joshua Julian. I don't know at all who was planting evidences on that side of my house with them, and with others like a Robert Rodriguez was planting evidences on the front of my house. In other words, and on mine, and with the courts forging and switching names as collusions at crime scenes. A whole bunch of courts and prisons have predicate acts with the Robert Rodriguez and people with the name tomorrow and religious spots and all sides of a religious spot next to them and people associated with that religious spot through time as ones involved with the World Trade Center attack through everyone just speaking through others too. It's neighbors of a Mark Violet. I forgot the name of that street, but it's not far from a I believe Incarnation Church in Wethersfield. But his neighbor went to a church that I believe it's a different name of type of church now on Route 3. And there are names on all sides of that who were influenced to plant evidences against me, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me on all sides of that place and people associated with it. As people increasingly involved with the World Trade Center attack, predicate acts too. WFSB attached me to fake conversations with them with the World Trade Center attack. Robert Rodriguez is one of the ones involved with retired police chiefs and intimate ties to them, and foreign and domestic medical families who are planting evidences on my street with people involved with them. I don't know where he lives now or where he lives. I walked by, apparently he lives at the house next to that religious spot on Route 3, which goes by the state judicial branch offices. No, Wethersfield Pizza House right near there has wire crime acts and methods with the judicial branch and the executive branch grouped predicate acts methods too. So in other words, we can examine this, how individually grouped and together they are used and have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Joe DeMauro will court confess, demonstrate, confirmed. He lied about himself, me, and others with the FBI director and his co-dependents and their family members and his educators. I don't even know their names. I know Mr. Neville is one of the ones all with people with names all along the Route 3 that goes by the judicial branch offices involved with him in those spots, like where he lives, his apartment building there, next to the Wethersfield Shopping Center. Has something to do with the people next to that apartment building, like there was an Omni place, and there's like a bank there, like a credit union place, and there are state police form and whiting forensics people associated with and their family members associated with a Phil Collusion by a whole bunch of people that he's involved with identity theft, fraud, slander with the intelligence communities, intercities, and where there's a guy from there are families from Puerto Rico with the name Cintron. And they have scams with a police chief Cintron and people involved with his family and intimate ties to retired police chiefs. With all kinds of wire crime acts and methods, they just put fake phone transcripts with police. They just change and fake what's digitally recorded as evidences. They cover this up with the prisons. On a mass scale, they do crime methods like putting charges with no writing. And then they just put either pretended into databases. And they put also arrays of falsified police reports with switching officers' names with ones that weren't even there. Then doing things, and one guy staring and looking at a crazy face at the judge. A quote, black themed guy as one of the ones involved with some black KKK Latino themed from Wethersfield, involved with him apparently calling in sexual things to the business office years ago too. In other words, there's a detective Samuda involved with the FBI director Robert Luskin and a whole bunch of people with the business department at Central Connecticut State University, with some courts that have been refusing to identify themselves because a whole bunch of people with the court have roles with predicate acts to Central Connecticut State University through time, and intra-cities too. Central Connecticut State University is recorded involved with predicate acts in Wethersfield when I was a kid, with people from there increasingly involved with this. And with the principal child abuser, I got more involved with that and with him. And names, how they're stupid with the subjects is relative to how they brought in murders and untimely deaths rolls, and planting evidence on my street with the ones involved with that, with an untimely death at Trinity College too. They put a fake letter with me. They changed the fake digital evidences, and they took my sarcasm with the digital with the. They might have killed the Hugh Ogden off of that. So in other words, because then they have, in other words, to make they're searching for excuses, and it's interstates. And then that's where Governor Malloy from Connecticut went to Maine University. Maine has a bunch of people involved with Hartford Hospital, with former Governor Malloy, with some child sex offenders, leaders of kids, and medical at the same time. And his self-value roles with FBI Director Robert Luskin and the judges and prosecutors with the Darren and others at East Hartford locations. There are houses and businesses next to that location with the CRT, Community Resources Training place. Where also used is the difference between Republican corruption only capable of being and Democratic too, only capable of being relative to what they've been doing at and next to the campuses. So increasingly people tied to a Joe DeMauro and a Ray Reynolds, and a John DeMauro and a Paul DeMauro and their family members. I don't know his mother's and father's name. And their neighbors have roles with a whole bunch of different countries, with people at. I went to that grammar school. I never saw them at that grammar school, but increasingly names next to that grammar school are involved with there's people with the name Harris who put fake things in the database, and she has a Kevin Harris involved at Quinnipiac University with people that have been faking ties to me since I was a kid, including pretending passion and emotion so other people can record it, making it look like I had interactions with them before I did, including they have fights against people, and they do that to hide and fake what came first. So, in other words, a Fred Guzet, a Kevin Harris, a Rick Cianfaglione have some prosecutors and judges at Quinnipiac University, and people that know my name, I don't even know their name, who have been planting things and evidences. And they lied about what's actually recorded, what they thought about it. They're planting evidences, all kinds of natures of organized crime with this polling location, and with research locations, specifically to influence people with the word research, and having black people as whites of eyes, and having looked over and seen fish with two eyes. That's research. See, there's such research. They have research places used to measure and maintain. People are, self-value roles with, indifferent to replacing what's actually recorded true always with pretended theory. On mass scale, they change what people say to theory when they mention predicate acts. For example, they change their words. They self-value roles doing that. They get away with it relative to people who stacked predicate acts at each of the campuses I went to. So these are ones increasingly involved with probate court judges, with drugs and medicines crimes, as the ones acting at and next to campuses, behind people's backs. like acting, literally, all fake transcripts, but at the same time as overt criminal enterprises, private ones. See, both sides, all sides don't have the integrity, the capacity to overcome the real source worst and the real worst U/S roles of things like criminal insidiousness itself at all locations, areas, and states. Everywhere the human species body has a body standing. We have been the human species body of individual bodies with all group differences generated by the system that answers us. We have been systems tactilitarian from its own, that which is hypernative pure. Vaccine. See, president slash chief are not supposed to be compatible. I mean, and except for that way, or we're supposed to sense otherwise. But see, in other words, each difference has been prevented. Free speech with difference. All exceptions show there's a scam relative. Increasingly, people tied to, in other words, please, Judge Napolitano, look at these talking heads with his Midas Touch network and the Harry Litman show. These are shell game roles with sides, 6 sides with differences. Let's get the interbranch switching and forging names on paper and their collusions. Let's get their sources on paper too, and the ones that next to the crime scenes involved, and with the news. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB, and we're going to examine what they're doing with the intelligence at and next to the news locations. And there are recorded uses of the exceptions, like with the people with the lawyers and the Russia and Ukraine with the public television and the confessions regarding that with their roles, with the corners of the streets involved, with them planting evidences with the news, etc. Fear to hide and plot. In other words, also I've been telling you guys, I know about things, more credible threats on the kids. You won't let me get an answer. You won't get me get a response in writing. Interbranch force switch names, forcing me not to tell. They forced the principal child abuser. Weathersfield, get them on paper. Let's get them on paper. There's a Jessica Cintran. Seek her out. Make sure I get that police chief Cintran. And I want the names of all ones tied to this 80 Carriage Hill Drive. Involved with this Phil Collo that went by on a bike. Involved with this Bob Chase's confessions and demonstrations of his roles with them. There's a Phil Collo involved on my street with predicate acts with a Bob Chase and some child sexual and medical offenders, and his roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, including with my teachers behind my back since I was a kid. I don't even know if he went to my school or he was just. I saw him one time. Apparently he did from a distance, being handed a golden watch by a teacher. And I was looking for people that are increasingly involved with putting identity theft, fraud, slanders against me with names that have been planting evidences on all sides of my house tied to them from other areas. In other words, increasingly people with whiting forensics with the name Joshua Julian are also involved with them, planting evidence on all sides of my house with them. An officer, Jerry Miller, people with the name Kerr, people with the name Jensen, also on YouTube recorded, on Facebook recorded. Between the social media, they have the Facebook page of the Britain Superior Court and of Weathersfield Police that had time collusions with proven digital upskirt nature picture at shopping centers and roles with more at the campuses. And after he was arrested for that, they put one of those pictures to me on Twitter. These are people that have readings of statutes and precedents that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought. So there were a bunch of prosecutors. There's a Brian Taylor and a Brendan Leahy involved with people at Quinnipiac University planting evidence of identity theft, fraud, slanders, including, with the FBI Director Robert Luskin, involved with this Kevin Harris and his family members, and with sexual and medical offenders of kids and of the kids of leaders of kids. He's recorded involved with predicate acts against it was when a principal I had Aaron Murphy. I never had a personal conversation with Aaron Murphy. Aaron Murphy was the daughter reportedly of a Mr. Murphy, who people who had conversations with him about me are involved with that too. They everyone speaks to other people. Those were our ones that were increasingly involved with the principal being, with more obscure pictures and worse, with untimely deaths and names next to the campuses that have been attached to me when I was a kid, now as an adult, to fake ties, fake natures of ties to themselves. Also, WFSB has a Dr. Laura Saunders. They've been demonstrating involved with. I never met her in my life, but there are others like a Dr. Alehi family that faked conversations with me, and they have roles forging names of people at Institute of Living with judges and prosecutors speaking fake things and putting delusions in records too, as in sequence shifts, covering up and changing what's actually digitally recorded. So that I know the principal upskirt nature with digital crimes with the kids and with the shopping centers and malls. People with the name Colo and tomorrow have West Farms Mall with the name Scalora. They're increasingly involved with them. Also with the Facebook pages of the campuses. A Joshua, I mean, a Joshua Schumack, a Joshua Schumack, but also a Joshua Julian, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that he's involved with planting evidences with people on my area, on the sides of my house, including on digital crimes, on the Facebook page of the principal child abuser offender. And he has roles with that. He had roles forcing the principal child abuser with my neighbors, involved forcing child abusers more, and they hid that from the parents, and they're lying about it to them. They're lying to them about me. That's why it's important to get them to demand it. If you guys are too cowards to communicate with me, and they make fake exceptions and they get away with the ones that are tied to it. I didn't say it at first so I could get it all recorded and figure it out, in other words. But watch, in other words. When I say make sure I get a response, don't be cowards. Rocky Hill campuses, Weathersfield campuses, let's get them on paper. New Britain campuses, let's go. Let's go. Get them on paper. West Hartford campuses. I forgot her name. The same name that was reportedly, I'm not saying it's the same, I think it was O'Neill. O'Neill. There's a teacher named O'Neill with the intelligence community, involved also with whiting forensics, with the Joshua Schumack, with some black KKK, Confederate flag team, Latino themed intelligence, with identity theft fraud, falsified police reports, faked and changed wire crimes. And now there are roles with West Hartford, with Kuwaiti generally even involved, and like Eric Burgess and his neighbors, involved also recorded with campuses and a fire department there, involved also with a religious spot there and a park with confessions that also Joe Dennis sought me out as a stranger to make as a kid and then as an adult. Joe Dennis has roles with that park, with the intelligence community, with the FBI and courts, and all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions and their family members at the same time. Foreign and domestic military, plenty of evidence is there. Increasingly with mayors. A former mayor Gold is increasingly one of the ones involved with Joseph Dennis with all kinds of natures of organized crimes. Through federal, all kinds of criminally foreign influence uses of all natures of investigators. And these are good people made and kept evil because their rules of predicate acts when they were growing up against strangers. And with their educators, putting people that are not even in fake classes together, fake ties, fake natures of ties to each other, making fake exceptions, then not being able to afford discernment out of that, even though a reaching method used it. You guys are obligated to get on paper, one name and sequence, and get these talking heads down, to use a phrase of one of the O'Connors involved, with the leaders of the kids and their family members and their neighbors, Increasingly, people next to the O'Connors are involved with Central Connecticut State University foreign and domestic intelligence families that have been planting identity theft fraud slanders against me. They act to make both fake sides. Mike Carone, Kevin Carone, and I don't even Mark Carone. I never had a class with them. They had rules with some families near me, and they had like a sexual circle with them. Per them, I didn't even respond. I was standing there, and they're looking at me. Justin Kavitskis, and and people that have said they were intimately tied with Danielle Perron right before we sat down there. In other words, and they're sitting there, I'm standing there, and it was like a quick exception of me. I don't know them. They're trying to make a fake exception of knowing me at a Weathersfield Park years ago go at night. And I'll stand there, in other words, and the little the thing creaked on the bench I was standing on. So I cracked it with my feet, and they were looking at it, and everyone they had been prompted to sit there because all others had already recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They were pretending other, but that's what's recorded. They had been planting evidences next to that park, and then they did it when I was an adult too, with people connected to them from other areas who had gone to different schools, involved with the ones from other classrooms, putting me to fake ties, fake nature of ties, putting fake things in databases roles. Increasingly, Hartford Hospital has the Institute of Living, involved with people involved with untimely deaths and sexual and medical offenders of kids and their roles with the criminal enterprises at and next to their place in Hartford, intercities with the names next to other campuses, involved with identity theft fraud slings with them, putting fake evidences, untimely death rules timed, collusion with that. Robert Rodriguez will tell you. The people at Trinity College will tell you. Where's this Joshua Stryker live? There's a Joshua Stryker is increasingly been spreading identity theft fraud slanders against me with people in my area, intercities, and on campuses. Let's get him on paper with his educators and the FBI director and his co-defendants and their neighbors. Watch. All kinds of medical corruption in there.